Good morning. My name is Colombus Leo. I want to thank Philip and the organizers for putting this together. It's a lot of work in the background. And also look forward to listening to every one of you because there's a lot of the very good stories to learn. And so to get connected and to try to work together after this. Now, my family immigrated to Canada in 1974 when I was 14 years old, so you can work out how old I am now. After coming to Canada, as a young boy, 14 years old, I began to learn what I was taught in Taiwan had a lot of lies. And I learned the Canadian values of human rights, social justice, and democracy, and I felt this is so good. And could we try to push that toward Taiwan? Because Taiwan has been under several hundred years of colonial rules by the Dutch, Spanish, British, Koxinga Pirate King, then the Qing Dynasty, and in 1895 to the Japanese for 50 years. And so my parents grew up as Japanese and spoke Japanese language. But at the end of the Second World War, Japan lost. General MacArthur ordered several different armies, and they divided up North and South Korea and ordered Chiang Kai-shek's troops from China to occupy Taiwan and Vietnam on behalf of the Allied powers. But the Chinese Civil War ensued, and Chiang Kai-shek lost and fled to Taiwan with his army and stayed and established what still exists in Taiwan today as the Republic of China regime, even though there's still a lot of debate on the legitimacy of that, because there were many people saying Taiwanese people should be given a right to choose for their future, not necessarily continue to be occupied a brutal KMT regime. Anyway, that's what I grew up with. And after moving to Toronto and getting to Taiwanese association and Taiwanese churches, and then receiving education in Canada, I began to become more active and even became president of the Taiwanese Canadian Association of Toronto at the age of 26. Was very young by the standards of that time. I was outspoken and then found myself blacklisted by the KMT regime in Taiwan. So I'm not exactly exiled as a refugee. My family immigrated to Canada, but in Taiwan, the KMT regime, they still have this entry visa system even for citizens of Taiwan or Republic of China. So for many of us, we found, hey, we may not be able to go back to Taiwan even though we were born there. And I learned that if you are a Canadian citizen, you have a right to be in Canada. So there was one time when I came back to the Canada immigration, that's what they said. Canadian citizens, you have the right to be here, not been deported or banned. Anyway, in 1988 and 89, the picture that's shown in the website for the Voices in Exile, Philip chose a picture of me when I was young at that time. And basically the World Federation of Taiwanese Associations that I was involved in, even though many people were blacklisted, not able to go back to Taiwan, we decided we would go back to Taiwan to hold a conference there. I was young and maybe courageous, maybe a bit naive. I was fully supportive of that. I was like, yeah, let's go. Even though for many other people, they felt it was, are you nuts? You're trying to do that? But we did. Many of us, using different ways. I couldn't get an entry visa with my original name, Leo, so I got the name Columbus. Got a new Canadian passport. didn't use my original Mandarin Chinese name, Luo Yishi. I used something different. By luck, I got a visa to go into Taiwan. So that's my story and my wife's situation to go back to Taiwan for the first time in 1988. We were invited to speak in many places. And again, I was young and kind of naive. I said many things that we would usually say outside of Taiwan. I say that in Taiwan, hey, those old thieves, those MPs for life, that's not right. They should be abolished, should be reelected. Taiwan should be independent. There should be press freedom, that type of things. It was a shock to many of the reporters in Taiwan at that time. That was 1988. I think the KMT regime in Taiwan wasn't quite prepared. At first, they thought that they would just smear us. These are all terrorists. They are uneducated. They are not welcome in Taiwan. But when people in Taiwan saw many of us come in, there were many doctors, professors, lawyers. They were very good, successful people that cared about Taiwan's future. And being in Taiwan, the KMT regime, I guess they were at a loss of what to do. So the conference was successful. We decided we wanted to do that again in 1989. So we went again, and that time the KMT regime was very harsh on us. We still held our conference and rally, but at the end of that, our side was in Taipei, capital of Taiwan, staying in a dissident place. In one morning, we were going to go and speak to graduate students in National Taiwan University. As we were walking out, I and another friend, we were surrounded by 400 police. To the car we were going in, we were tear gassed. Facing tear gas was awful. It's bad for your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and we had to get out of the car. And then we were manhandled, dragged to the police car, drove straight to the airport, and deported. It was interesting. Even the airplane had maybe 50 military police holding rifles standing, and so everyone in the airplane was thinking, well, who the heck are these guys? What did they do to get deported like that? Wow, that was the second time going back to Taiwan. And with my wife, fortunately, my wife has been very supportive of all of this work. And at the end of 1989, I decided to go back to Taiwan again. This time, I knew there were risks, and indeed, I was surrounded by police, beaten up. They didn't punch my face, they punched me everywhere else, dragged me to the van, and I was arrested, and this time imprisoned. At first charged with violation of the national security law. A few weeks after that, I was charged with sedition for advocating Taiwan independence and democracy. That sedition charge would have carried a minimum of 10 years to lifetime. So that was a shock to all of us at the time. It was, anyway, fortunately to my wife and other Taiwanese friends in Toronto, they started a lot of work to try to get me rescued. And at that time, as I was preparing this slide, I said, many Taiwanese sacrificed, died, imprisoned, and kept going to press for changes. Many overseas Taiwanese, not just myself, many others continue to go back to Taiwan despite the risk. As soon as they land in Taiwan, they would arrested, beaten up, imprisoned. But one by one, just kept going. One friend, Dr. Wang Gangdu, he went back, and after being released, when he went to talk to at the university, on the way back, he was rammed, killed in a mysterious car accident by someone who was supposedly poor laborer but was driving a BMW. Very suspicious. Anyway, those are what happened there. So I'll go to the next slide to talk a little bit about in my situation, due to my wife and other Taiwanese people's work, they did petitions and got many Canadian MPs to take note. Some wrote letters, some raised these issues in Canadian Parliament. I grew up as a Christian, went to church here, and some church people got involved. And United Church of Canada, in the General Council, decided to pass a resolution to send a former moderator, Reverend Bruce MacLeod, to Taiwan to ask for my release. Someone from Netherlands and heard about my case. Amnesty International adopted me as a prisoner of conscience, and some friends in Netherlands decided to, hey, let's talk to the Reformed churches in the Netherlands, and somehow they got people interested, so they got, hey, let's have a letter campaign. So they decided to get many church people to send cards to me in prison. So I received more than 4,000 cards in prison that told the regime in Taiwan that people are watching from the world. The Presbyterian Church in Taiwan, very courageous organization, with influence from Canada. Canada's missionary went to Taiwan 150 years ago to start the missionary work. Anyway, at that time, they decided to hold a rally demanding for my release and the release of other political prisoners. And all of that did result in my sedition case of advocating Taiwan independence to not be indicted. That was a precedent-setting case. A lot of changes were happening in Taiwan, but many people pressed on. I was released in the end of 1990, came back to Canada. I received a parliamentary citation from the MP Jesse Fries, and we continued to work. Taiwan has now become a democracy after all.